Hello, today we'll do the lesson The Boy Who Broke the Bank by Ruskin Bond. Ruskin Bond is a living legend. He's an Anglo Indian writer who lives in Darjeeling or in North India. So here we have The Boy Who Broke the Bank. Nathu grumbled to himself as he swept the steps of the People Nagar Bank owned by Seth Govind Rao. So Nathu is the boy in the title, the boy who broke the bank, and he is sweeping the steps of the People Nagar Bank. So that is also the bank in the title. So Nathu is the boy who breaks the bank. How does he do it? Now, People Nagar Bank was owned by Seth Govind Ram. He used a small broom hurriedly and carelessly, and the dust, after rising in a cloud above his head, settled down again on the steps. So Nathu sweeps the steps of the bank carelessly. The dust rises and falls again to the ground. So, as Nathu was banging his pan against the dustbin, Sitaram, the washerman's son, passed by. So Nathu collects some of the dust in the dustpan. He takes it to the dustbin and he empties the dustpan and bangs the dustpan against the garbage can when Sitaram, the washerman's son, passed by. Sitaram was on his delivery round. A washerman is a dhobi. He irons the clothes, he washes the clothes, and he delivers the pressed and ironed clothes back to the customers. So Sitaram was on his delivery round. He was going to return the pressed and washed clothes to the customers. He had a bundle of freshly pressed clothes balanced on his head. Don't raise such dust, he tells Nathu. He called out to Nathu, are you annoyed because they're still refusing to pay you an extra 2 rupees a month? So Sitaram asked Nathu if he's annoyed because the bank manager doesn't allow him a salary raise of 2 rupees a month. I don't want to talk about it, complained the sweeper boy. I haven't even seen my regular pay. So he hasn't even got that month's pay. But, and this is the 20th of the month. Who would think a bank would hold up a poor man's salary? As soon as I get my money, I'm off. Not another week. So Nathu says that as soon as he receives that month's salary, he'll leave the job and he won't stay another week in that place. And Nathu banged the pan against the dustbin several times just to emphasize his point and giving himself confidence. Well, I wish you luck, said Sitaram. I'll keep a lookout for any jobs that might suit you. And he plodded barefoot along the road, a big bundle of clothes hiding most of his head and shoulders. Plodded means he walked like very heavily, and the big bundle of clothes hid most of his head and shoulders. At the fourth home he visited, Sitaram learned the lady of the house mentioned that she was in need of a sweeper. Tying his bundle together, Sitaram said, I know of a sweeper boy who's looking for work. He can start from next month. He's with the bank just now, but they aren't giving him his pay, and he wants to leave. Is that so? Asked Mrs. Srivastava. Well, tell him to come and see me tomorrow. And Sitaram, glad that he had been of service to both a customer and a friend, lifted his bag on his shoulders and went his way. Mrs. Srivastava had to do some shopping. She gave instructions to the ayah about looking after the baby. So in the house there was a baby and she gives instructions to the maid servant or the ayah about looking after the baby and told the cook not to be late with the midday meal. Then she set out for People Nagar marketplace to make her customary tour of the cloth shops. So she's going to buy some clothes. A large shady tamarind tree grew at one end of the bazaar, and it was here Mrs. Srivastava found her friend Mrs. Bhushan sheltering from the heat. So Mrs. Srivastava's friend Mrs. Bhushan is sheltering under the tamarind tree in the bazaar. Mrs. Bhushan was fanning herself with a large handkerchief. She complained of the summer, which she affirmed was definitely the hottest in the history of People Nagar. So that summer is very hot. She then showed Mrs. Srivastava a sample of the cloth she was going to buy, and for 5 minutes they discussed its shade, texture, and design. Having exhausted this topic, Mrs. Srivastava said, "Do you know, my dear, that Seth Govindram's bank can't even pay its employees? Only this morning I heard a complaint from the sweeper who hasn't received his wages for over a month." "Shocking," remarked Mrs. Bhushan. "If they can't pay the sweeper, they must be in a bad way. None of the others could be getting paid either." So, Mrs. Bhushan and Mrs. Srivastava come to the conclusion that People Nagar Bank is loss making, is making a loss, and therefore they can't afford to pay the salaries to their employees on time. She left Mrs. Srivastava at the tamarind tree and went in search of her husband, who was sitting in front of Kamal Kishore's photograph shop, talking with the owner. "So there you are, Mrs. Bhushan. I've been looking for you for almost an hour. Where did you disappear?" "Nowhere," replied Mr. Bhushan. "Had you remained stationary at one shop, I might have found you. But you go from one shop to another, like a bee in a flower garden. Don't start grumbling." So she asked him not to start complaining. The heat is trying enough. So his heat is very hard to bear. "I don't know what's happening to People Nagar. Even the bank's about to go bankrupt." "Why, what's that?" asked Kamal Kishore, sitting up suddenly. "Which bank?" "Why, the People Nagar Bank, of course. I hear they've stopped paying employees. Don't tell me you have an account there, Mr. Kishore." So now, what Nathu told Sitaram and what Sitaram reported to Mrs. Srivastava as being misinterpreted by word of mouth, and now the people are coming to the conclusion that People Nagar Bank is collapsing because they can't pay their employees. The People Nagar Bank is about to collapse. You'd better get your money out as soon as you can. Deep Chand, who was cutting the hair of an elderly gentleman, was so startled that his hand shook and he nicked his customer's right ear. So next door to Kamal Kishore's photograph shop, there was Deep Chand, who had a hair cutting salon. When he heard that what Kamal Kishore said, that People Nagar Bank's about to collapse, he got shocked, he was startled, and as he was cutting the hair of a customer, he nicked the right ear of the customer. The customer yelled with pain and distress. So the customer becomes hurt and he shouts out in pain because of the cut and distress, because of the awful news he had just heard. With one side of his neck still unshaven, he sped across the road to the general merchant store where there was a telephone. So the customer who has still had one side of his chin unshaven gets out of the hair cutting salon and goes to the general merchant store where there was a telephone. So in those days, telephones were not so common. He dialed Seth Govindram's number. The Seth was not at home. Where was he then? The Seth was holidaying in Kashmir. Oh, was that so? The elderly gentleman did not believe it. He turned to the barber shop and told Deepchand, "The bird has flown," means the bird has escaped from the cage. Seth Govindram has taken all the profits and gone away to Kashmir. Seth Govindram has left town. Definitely it means a collapse. And then he dashed out of the shop, making a beeline for his office and checkbook. So he wants to go to his office, take out his checkbook, and withdraw all the money he has in People Nagar Bank. The news spread through the bazaar with the rapidity of a forest fire. So, just as a forest fire in a forest jumps from tree to tree, the news of the collapse of People Nagar Bank, the supposed collapse, spread by word of mouth as rapidly as a forest fire. From the general merchants, it traveled to the shop, circulated among the customers, and then spread with them in various directions to the beetle seller, the tailor, the vendor, the jeweler, the beggar sitting on the pavements. All the people were soon talking about the supposed collapse of People Nagar Bank. Old Ganpat, the beggar, had a crooked leg. He had been squatting on the pavement for years, calling out for alms. In the evening, someone would come with a bowl, with a barrow, and take him away. He had never been known to walk, but now, on learning that the bank was about to collapse, Ganpat astonished everyone, leaping up to his feet and actually running at top speed in the direction of the bank. It soon became known that he had 1,000 rupees in savings. So 1,000 rupees was a large sum in those days. Men stood in groups in street corners discussing the situation. People Nagar seldom had a crisis. People Nagar never had a problem. Seldom or never had floods, earthquakes, or drought. Drought is absence of rain, and the imminent crash of the People Nagar Bank set everyone talking and speculating. So everyone was speculating, they were talking what might happen, about what might happen, about the collapse that is imminent, that is about to happen. Speculating and rushing about in a frenzy. So everyone becomes panic stricken. Some based boasted of their farsightedness, congratulating themselves on having already taken out their money or never having put any in. So some congratulated themselves on having withdrawn all their money or having some others having never put any money into People Nagar Bank. Others speculated on the reasons for the crash, putting it all down to excesses indulged in by Seth Govindram. So Seth Govindram has been living exorbitantly, is buying this or that, so that is the reason for the crash of People Nagar Bank. The Seth had fled the state, said one. The Seth had escaped from the state. He had fled the country, said a third. He had hanged himself from the tamarind tree, said a fourth, and had been found that morning by the sweeper boy. So all sorts of theories start circulating among the people. By now, by noon, the small bank had gone through all its ready cash. So people come into the cash in bank and withdraw all their savings. So all the cash in the bank had been withdrawn, and the harassed manager was in a dilemma. The manager of the bank was in a problem. Emergency funds could only be obtained from another bank and some 30 miles distance. So they could get some funds only from the nearest bank, which was 30 miles away, and he won't have time to persuade the crowd to wait until then. The crowd wouldn't wait until the armored van went to the nearest bank and got back the money. The crowd was getting restless, and there was no way of contacting Seth Govindram on his houseboat in Kashmir. So Seth Govindram was on his houseboat in Kashmir. People were turned back from the counters and told to return the following day. They did not like the sound of that. So when they're told to return the next day, they think the bank really doesn't have any money. And so they gathered outside on the steps of the bank shouting, "Give us our money back or we'll break in. Fetch the Seth. He's hiding in a safe deposit locker." Mischief makers who didn't have a paisa in the bank joined the crowds and aggravated them out. So mischief makers went about saying the bank has really collapsed. Said Govindaram has escaped. They gave such news and the people became even more frenzied and angry. The manager stood at the door and tried to placate them. Manager stopped them and tried to calm them down, placate them. He declared that the bank had plenty of money but no immediate means of collecting it. He said the bank had lots of money but couldn't get it immediately. He urged them to go home and come back the next day. We want it now, chanted some of the crowd. Now, now, now. And a brick hurtled through the air and crashed against the plate glass window of the People's Nagar Bank. So one of the windows is broken by someone in the crowd who hurls a brick, who throws a brick through the air into the. Nathu arrived next morning to sweep the steps of the bank. He saw the refuse, he saw the garbage and the broken glass and the stones cluttering the steps. So there were all sorts of pieces of building, glass, bricks, and stones lying on the steps. Raising his hands in a gesture of horror and disgust, he cried, "So, how will I sweep all this?" So he raises his hands in a gesture of horror and disgust. Hooligans, sons of donkeys, as though it wasn't enough to be paid late. It seems my work was also to be increased. He smote the steps with his broom, scattering the refuse. "Good morning, Nathu," said the washerman's boy, getting down from his bicycle. "Are you ready to take up a job from the first of next month?" "You'll have to, I suppose. The bank is going out of business." "How's that?" said Nathu. "Haven't you heard? Well, you'd better wait here until half the population of People Nagar arrives to claim the money." And he waved cheerfully. So Sitaram is unworried by that. He did not have a bank account and sped away on his cycle. Nathu went back to sweeping the steps, muttering to himself. So Nathu muttered angrily to himself. When he had finished his work, he sat down on the side step to await the arrival of the manager. He was determined to get his pay. Who would have thought the bank would collapse? He said to himself and looked thoughtfully into the distance. I wonder how it could have happened. So, this is the story of the boy who broke the bank. Nathu, the sweeper boy, who unwittingly is the reason for the collapse of People Nagar Bank. Thank you.